Welcome to another episode of Pitch Us. Super excited to have a celebrity guest with us, Robert Herreri from Deco, and as always, my co-host Jeff Erickson. My name is Tim Cooley. I am the author of the Pitch Deck book. Jeff, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Tim. Jeff Erickson with Forecaster. Forecaster makes financial modeling simple and easy for startup founders. We've got a great discount available through Pitch Us, and you can refer to that also in the links on this podcast. So excited to have Robert join us here. Robert, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, and thank you guys for having me. Seems really exciting. Sure, I'm Robert. I'm the co-founder and partner at Deco. We are the leading pitch deck development company for startups and venture capital funds. We connect founders with an active venture capitalist from their vertical, so their stage, their industry, etc., to create their deck content for them from scratch. And then from there, connect them with expert designers to then bring the entire thing to life, to really make fully customized pitch decks, the kind of pitch decks we'd want to see across our own desks as VCs, completely from scratch for founders.
Awesome. Well, Robert, thank you so much for being here. Cooper, excited to hear about HNA.Live. So please share your screen and pitch us.
Sounds good. Okay, everyone. My name is Cooper Mojienko. I am the CEO and founder of HNA.Live Data Analytics. Now, in the manufacturing journey, it's tired, it's very intricate with the processes, and it creates a lot of effort to then create and fabricate and produce all of these beautiful things in our world today. Imagine a solution which brings all of these particular elements happening all throughout a manufacturing plant, all in one clarity, precision of an image, and that is what HNA.Live is all about. So there's a challenge. It's right now the challenge is the need to streamline manufacturing processes to then drive the overall site and facility efficiency as well as profitability. Now, this is giving us the opportunity, as we're checking out, there's inefficient processes providing poor visibility for decision makers, which is basically allowing them to go 20% up or down with their forecasts and optimization for their plants. Globally, over 91% of plants, they say, increased investment for digital transformation. And it's right now reporting a significant increase. Also, we got ourselves the smart manufacturing market size, which is actually projected to be $500 billion by 2017. So this is demonstrating just the growth and potential for HNA.Live and what we've developed in the manufacturing vicinity of things. So what we do, we transform manufacturing through the power of AI, artificial intelligence. So what we are a cloud-based solution that combines AI and transforms business activities in manufacturing plants into 3D with 3D technology and computer vision. So in a sense, we optimize the manufacturing facilities as much and as innovative as possible. So through pilots, through case studies, through the last 2 years of development, we've gotten feedback and very good reviews on how greatly this is increasing productivity just by providing real-time visibility in the manufacturing plant. So decision makers, managers, and everyone else, they can actually see where the parts are, what they're doing, and the status if there's anything that's critical or technically an issue. So manufacturers can monitor with our technology production lines. They can also identify bottlenecks, and we also use predictive analytics to drive the improvement. Once you're with us in a partnership and a contract, essentially we just continuously innovate and create more value for you with our technology. So HNA.Live, we are led by a team. First, me. I'm the founder and CEO. I have about 10 years of expertise in the computer applications, engineering technology, and AI, as well as my co-founder, Zach Oakley. He has been in the manufacturing realm of things for the last 8 years, managing plants, product design, development, all of the above. So we've done a lot already. We have MVPs that prove the idea works. So our manufacturing cloud solution actually has been validated by positive feedback, successful implementation with, like I said, the partners and pilots. So we've raised about $100,000 via Bootstrap Founder Family, which got us to where we are today. But our biggest barrier when it comes to entry into the market is, in fact, that there's somewhat of a high cost for the equipment which we have to install for our computer vision to work. So in the long grand scheme of things, after developing for 2 years, it all comes down to prioritizing and building trusted relationships with our customers. Every customer is different. Every customer has a different technology starting point. But what we do is provide personalized manufacturing cloud solution with close collaboration and trying to establish a very long-term partnerships for success in their future. So we're raising 1.4 million to execute a 12-month plan, seeking a lead investor for a safe or equity-based round. We have a pre-revenue valuation of about 9 million. And this is offering a 15% shareholding with already in crowdfunding $20,000 invested. What this is going to do, this will allow us to get into a growth phase and stage. So 50% would be towards hiring key employees, sales team, actually commercializing and bringing this developed technology solution to the manufacturing market, as well as our data collection sensors, which I mentioned. They're somewhat pricey in the beginning, but once we can install them, there's no need for any else. And further would be towards operations for expenses and upfront consumer materials. Lastly, we would like to further advance and protect our IP for computer vision technology. So what this investment is going to do, it's going to first get us out of pre-revenue and into our first year of generating revenue with a $600,000 plus first year while servicing. And what it does, we'll actually be able to bring our technology service to 6 manufacturing plants at least with the equipment and necessary employees of expertise. Also expanding for 6 full-time employees. This would allow us to onboard and integrate much quicker throughout the United States and then globally. And our future is to, in the long run, transform the manufacturing industry so these key decision makers can spend more time innovating, spend more time optimizing, putting their money into things that come out and bring much more value, utilizing technology rather than chasing all of the mishaps and trying to interpret all of this data, which is already out there for us to help. Any questions? I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Awesome, Cooper. Thank you so much for that presentation. So what we would like to do is start off with those things that we liked. So Robert, please kick us off.
Totally. And Cooper, thank you for the presentation and for walking us through the company. I think one thing that's particularly interesting about what you're doing is, talk about an overlooked market. We are talking about something that even decision makers at manufacturing companies have historically overlooked. And so this is certainly a white space that other people are not innovating in. And I think that you have a massive blue sky opportunity for yourself to become the dominant leader in that space.
Thank you.
Awesome. Jeff.
Great. Yeah. Appreciate it, Cooper. Really interesting. And like Robert said, it's a space that I'm not super familiar with, but again, it's not one that you see, everybody jumping at other than the AI component of it. catches everybody's attention right now. But so I liked how you put through the use of funds. You actually detailed that out and said, here's how we're going to use it. I think, you could have probably displayed it differently and helped out on some of those things. And we'll go through some of that. And I think the other thing is that you've raised some money, but it sounded like it was all friends and family. I wasn't totally sure on that.
Friends, family, and founder bootstrap. Yes.
Okay. And and I got a good idea of kind of where you've come from, but I think would have also helped to have kind of a timeline, so I can kind of picture that along the way of where you've been.
We've done a lot.
You did have your milestones and things that you wanted to hit. It was just all in text, and so it was hard to kind of put that into a visual. So we'll go through some of that here, but super cool what you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll add to it. I do think this is a very cool space to try and get into from a company point of view. And so I think we can help a lot more, but you have a lot of the elements that we would look for in a deck. And now I think it's just about presenting it in a way that's really going to highlight what you guys have done and then where you're going. And so with that, Robert, let's start off with areas of opportunity. You're muted, by the way.
Super helpful. Yeah, totally. So picturing this deck as if it had come across my desk at my firm Timeless Ventures or at Evolution VC Partners. I would not be able to follow it if you were not there in the room with me. And that's really important. Most decks, especially today, talk when you're not in the room. If you look at the Y Combinator deck from 2015 and 2016, back when we were pitching in person in these big, massive events, that's when we had one word or one sentence on a page, and that was all. Now, look at the rise of things like SPVs, where one deal is now going to 40, 50, 60 different investors who are each putting in smaller checks into one LLC to then invest into companies. If you look across the board, pre-seed through Series E, rounds are filled and filled and filled with more and more of these SPVs, which means that your deck is going to need to talk when it's not in the room, when you're not in the room anymore. And to do that, I have some constructive comments that might be able to help you get there. So for one, I need to get a clearer understanding of who your customer is and how they make decisions. I think you're assuming that I already know more about your market than I already do. And what I mean by that is you have really found an overlooked market. I mean, really overlooked. And I don't understand what those pain points are in the heads of the manufacturing plants.
Okay.
I don't understand what it means to lose in this space. What does it cost these people to get these things wrong? And how much can they save by getting things right? And how much can they increase productivity by getting things right? So help me understand the decision-making process and what matters to these buyers. That's one. The next is on the design side. You mentioned that you had already had an MVP live. I haven't seen your product yet. And because I have,
it would be almost good to show you the appendix.
Right, perhaps.
All these call sessions are in the appendix, so I'm happy to.
That's great. And I see 1,000 deals, 2,000, 3,000 deals a year. So, and the first glance that an investor sees a deck in, they're not going to look at your appendix.
Yeah,
and chances are what they'll actually be doing is they'll be on a call just like this, and out of the corner of their eye, they might get an email with your deck and look at it for 45 seconds and decide whether or not they want to come back to this deck later. And so we really need to front load all the things that make your company exciting.
Yeah.
And that
we have a lot of exciting things.
Yeah. Bringing your product to life through product images, highlighting who the customer is and why this is important to them. You guys already have the experience, which is your biggest call to credibility right now. And you already have the MVP live. Take me into those and invite me into that with your deck.
Immerse.
Yeah, fully immerse me. This way, I want to come back to that deck and I want to spend more than 45 seconds on it.
Yeah.
And I'm also, investors look at your deck's design as a proxy for how you're going to approach your customers. And if you're approaching us without any visuals, with just text on a page with no branded font, I didn't even see your logo yet, then I assume that you're going to be doing the same with customers. And in any marketplace, that's something that is going to matter, whether or not it's enterprise software or hardware, or it's an online platform. All of that is still going to matter, and especially to me, who's seeing a bunch of these decks every single day. I'll come back with some more. I'm happy to keep going, or I could pass this over to Jeff.
No, Robert, great commentary, and I know you've got a lot to add. My initial thought was, as we went through the deck, was, man, this is a great one to have Robert on here for, because I know you've got the whole design side of things. You help people tell a story and then put the design elements to it. And I think that was something, and Cooper, you probably know this. I mean, it was lacking the design elements. So, even if you had somebody, you pay somebody on Fiverr or something to kind of put this deck together. So it's got some visual elements to it.
Yeah.
That's super helpful. Regardless, because I loved what Robert said, is the way that you're coming across to us as investors is how we're automatically thinking that, okay, this is kind of how they're marketing and selling to others.
Yeah.
So it makes a big impression, because it's all about sales. It's like, if I'm going to invest in this company, you better know how to sell. And
I'd be happy to discuss that in a further meeting. We can schedule. Yeah,
sure. But I think one of the things where you could use some help on is on that, the visual aesthetics of the deck. So keep that in mind, and something that I think can help you out.
Okay.
The other thing is, so Tim, I don't know if you've read Tim's book, but Tim wrote the book called The Pitch Deck Book. And one of the biggest benefits, it's pretty simple. And it goes through the stages of a pitch deck book. There are certain elements in there that, even if you just took the things that he said, make sure to read every chapter even, but make sure you're hitting on all the points. There were some missing points in there. So normally one of the things investors are going to look for is they want to know the competition, and the market size. So we didn't get get to see what are you looking at? How big can this company be? What are you really envisioning here? So there's some pieces there that I think if you read Tim's book, I think you could put all of that together.
Take it out of the appendix and then put it in a sequence.
It sounds like you've got an appendix that you've kind of
every single question which you guys have mentioned, except for the design. We'd like to start first with the content and information itself, but that's where we're at. But I'd like to say, in the back end of things, we've been producing and developing like crazy. So this is all great feedback, and I really appreciate it.
Well, good. No, I hope so. And if you've got some of those slides in the appendix, one of the things you might look at is, making sure that you're hitting those things where they're not in the appendix.
Yeah.
So pull some of those in. So if you've got a financial slide where it shows, here's what we're going to hit next year and the next year and the next year, and here's kind of what our revenue projections are, then pull that in and let's, and you actually had some of those points in there. I think we just needed in the
whole all just in the appendix. So that's
market thing, all of that stuff that should be in there. And you had more time, so I think you could have pulled that stuff in and put it into the whole story of the company. So
absolutely. Yeah.
I knew Tim's going to hit on some things. One, I won't steal your thunder, Tim, but I'll let you talk about the ask slide and some of that. Like I said, I think you really do need to make sure you've got the competition, pull that out of the appendix, put that in there, put the market size and what you're, what you're going to capture there and what this market even looks like.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I'm going to say is kind of like what Robert mentioned this, that don't assume that any of us know anything about this industry you're talking about.
Yeah.
In this case, if you're talking just to me, that's the truth, right?
Yeah.
And so, speak to us. I mean, you hear it a lot of times, like speak to us as if we're like fifth graders or something like that.
Yeah.
Explain to us what I mean, from the very beginning.
Yeah. So
the problem, and define that really well so that we can grasp onto that from the very beginning. That's going to,
Yeah, I just translate it in a bit more. That's also been some feedback which we've gotten, and just in overall reviews and such. But we do have both sides of it. You could say the complexity as we've been linking everything together, but now it's time to more so translate it in something of a way that's much more interpretable, normalized.
you're telling that story
Yeah.
and know your audience. We want to be confident in knowing that you're the expert here, but we don't want you to make us experts in that process or even assume that we're going to be the experts. So, Tim, I'll let you kind of jump in.
Yeah, perfect. So again, thanks for presenting. Couple areas I would really look into. One, just less words.
Yes.
We're really trying to engage with you, and so there's a fine balance between, like Robert mentioned, not having a single word, which used to be the old ways, but like a decent, 8 words, 7 words can get a lot across. And if you're communicating over top of that, now you're just adding clarity. And then I'm going to use pictures. Pictures
Okay.
help us feel the problem, right? Like you can show a manufacturing plant that's shut down, and then you can also demonstrate your product working, right?
Yeah.
Again, I don't know what that actually looks like, but that pictures do a lot for decks. And
Absolutely.
and test out different things. There's great organizations out there. We always recommend 1 Million Cups to go out and test.
With them.
Okay, so do those kinds of things.
We've done accelerators, we've done incubators, a lot of different presenting for investors. A lot of investors are different as well. It's if you know the background already, it's much helpful, I could say. But
very true, 100%. But there's also things that every investor that we know at least requires about 12 different pieces of content.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not calling them slides because you can break that up, but and that's really what the book gets into. Another thing I want to point out is don't use transitions or animations. You kind of had to keep those elements. And like, I don't know if you recognize this, but you talk a little bit ahead maybe, or maybe behind when you click.
Placements,
So just throw it out there, right? Once the deck is fully dialed, just put the whole slide out there. We're not magicians. We're not doing a thing. Just throw it all out there.
Yeah.
And as you talk over it, we'll follow along.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay. So key areas here is pricing.
Our pricing is about $100,000 per plant, but it depends on the size of the plant, essentially.
Right. So let us know that just a full slide on that would be really helpful. Ask is one of my personal things. If I could change this around the world, end with your ask slide, put all those milestones, put all the things, put your contact information in there. And you mentioned how you had all these things in your appendix.
Yeah.
And one thing that I will mention, and I've had lots of conversations, you can say the same amount of high-level content in a minute, in 3 minutes, and 10 minutes, and use almost all the same slides. So don't hide stuff that's important in the appendix, right? Yep. Only hide the things that are in appendix that you know are going to be follow-up questions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, and usually I would say, Robert, I'd love your opinion on this. You might have 1 to 3 appendix slides that you constantly get questions on.
Yeah. I was gonna piggyback on that point, but if you
go ahead.
Sure. So to the point about appendixes, as CEO of the company, you know more about the company than anyone.
Inside and out.
Inside and out, which by nature you should be, right? Yeah. You should be too close to the product. You should understand all the nuts and bolts of it. That's what I'm hoping you are as an investor doing. By that nature, I don't know any of these things. And what you have an opportunity to do, especially with your company, is you could turn that risk into a real opportunity here, which is you are a category creator. And if I believe in the same way that you believe in this category, in this thing, I will trust you with with my money and life to go dominate this market.
Mhm.
You only have a few seconds to get me pumped about this thing. I am not going to do the homework of going into your appendix if I am not initially hooked. My mother has advice that I tell everyone when it comes to pitch decks, sales in general, which is a confused mind always says no. And right now, I'm still a little confused. And if I'm even just a little bit confused about what this opportunity is and what this market is and why I should care, I'm going to write it off and then go put my attention towards something that I can understand. And so,
I guess I can explain it like you said, like a 5-year-old here. I do like explaining it like so. But imagine you're sitting there trying to manage 60 plants at once. You either got to fly there, you got to make some calls, you can check some security cameras, but you typically have to wander or find the problem and go to it. What we do is put these particular computer sensors throughout a manufacturing plant. And what it does is give these decision makers with over 700,000 manufacturing plants operating in the United States access to everything going on, including all of the safety, all of the critical issues, and how to optimize it, where to find bottlenecks, and proceed on from there.
Great.
See, that was great. I mean, and I think you could have done that as your solution. You know, you could kind of present, dumb that down to that is your solution, because we don't need to know all of the how you're going to do it and all this stuff. We ask that in the follow-up, but we want to know what's the big problem, why are all these, and what's the cost and how big is this problem? People are having to fly to 60 places, that's expensive. It's
to get the data after they know the situation. They don't just have the data.
Yeah. And we don't know any of this. So
yeah,
explain that big problem to us.
Okay.
And then just like you did, now simplify the solution, say, this is how we're solving that problem. Bam. Now you've got our attention. We're like, oh, okay, this is cool. How big is this? We naturally go into these questions. How big is this market?
Yeah.
How,
quite organic.
Going to make money doing this, all that type of stuff. And that flows right through your story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I immediately understood why this is important to people. If you've got 7,000 manufacturing facilities, you're right. I can't be going around to each and every single one to inspect these things with my own eyes here.
Yeah.
And I certainly, I could hire a team, but that's going to cost me whatever that's going to cost me. I
Exactly.
hire a bunch of specialists for that. But with yours, that is all done remotely with some sensors and a SaaS.
The system makers can turn into a team themselves rather than managing the teams that give you all the data.
So that to me is like golden, because I'm putting myself in that guy's shoes and saying, okay, I'm saving time on travel.
Yep.
I'm saving human error because I'm working with sensors that are a lot more efficient. I'm saving
remote positions, rather everything. Yes.
All of it. And now I understand how to make decisions.
Okay.
So there's a couple of things I want to bring up too, but then we'll get to the final question.
Okay.
One of the things that you mentioned in the deck, and I'm going to ask you to remove this as you move forward.
Okay.
You talked about with the money, we're going to figure out how to get into these manufacturers and things like that. I can't remember the words you used, but that's what you're coming to us telling us you already figured it out.
So we basically already have about $500,000 in manufacturing plants that we can onboard, but we need to go through this technical pre-seed or bridge investment round for further growth to then be able to actually service all of these manufacturing plants at once. We have the success already. It's sales vendors, international sales vendors, marketplaces for our tools. It's just now the barrier is, in fact, that it's a bit pricey to install.
Okay. And you can't do an implementation fee to cover the cost?
So we need the capital to then take advantage of that, itself, if that makes sense. That turns into a pilot if we're doing that.
Sure. Well, cool. Well, let's get down to the final question, and that is based off of what we heard today. And as Robert mentioned before, a lot of times you'll go and pitch a group of 30 people, and maybe one person in the room knows who you even are or
Yeah.
anything about you. And
It
so
depends
based on
the
that,
size. Yeah.
yeah. Robert, based off what you heard today, would you move this company on to due diligence?
Sure. So based off of what I heard and what I saw today, before we went into comments, before we went into anything, just based on the initial 10 minutes, I would not. After, as I got to know your company, I did find myself more intrigued. I do think what you're doing is really exciting. But if we're talking purely on the first impression that was made, not at this stage.
Jeff?
My room for improvement would be, oh wait, do we do room for improvement now or after?
You can do it right now.
Well, go ahead.
So yeah, so my comments remain the same, which is I was confused the first time around.
Yeah.
I didn't fully understand it, and there was no visuals to help me understand it. We have a rule at Deco that we tell our team, which is words are your last resort, where visuals and other things can't do the work.
Yeah.
And so really hone those things so that I could, as closely as I can, to touching and feeling these sensors and putting them into my own hands.
Yeah.
Video, content, images, etc. Get all of that in there. Let me really feel the product, and let me understand the investor's decision-making process. I mean, the manufacturing owner's decision-making process. Now I'm interested.
Gotcha.
On it, but until then, for now, I wouldn't move it into diligence.
Yeah, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that as well. I don't think that based on the initial presentation, that it was ready to move on to due diligence. It just didn't, present a case for me to say, yeah, let's dive into this more at this point. I think you're actually a lot further along than your initial story told.
Yeah.
And so I think where you can really use some help is crafting that story in a way that speaks to your investors, and to again incorporate some of those things, the visuals, the graphics, to help tell that story in a way that I've got the confidence to say, okay, I want to back this. It wasn't quite there yet.
Okay.
Yeah, and then as what I agree with everyone what they're saying. This is one of those companies I would love to see a follow-up, right? Like I want you to send me a deck after you fixed it, because I think that what you're doing is interesting. And if I know how you're competing against SAPs and these big companies and why you can outperform them at a small level, like what's your beachhead into the market, this could be very interesting, right? And so
it's been getting a lot of great reviews. I can say that.
Let's see them. Let's see them.
A lot of very interested venture capital firms from the AI spectrum of investments and things like that, but also advanced manufacturing.
Awesome. Yeah.
But
well, please fix the deck, send it back to us. I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
If you need help, there's tools like Deco. If you need help with the finances, check out Forecaster. And like Jeff mentioned, if anyone's out there needs help, check out the book. It really gives you the pitch deck book. It gives you the foundation. And so thanks again, Cooper, for presenting. And Robert, appreciate you being here. This was great. And we will see you all next time.
Thank you for having us.
Bye-bye.